Everyone, and welcome back to the Let's Learn series, where this week we'll continue to cover the Kali Linux command line basics. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for the support that's been shown for the series thus far. It's really great to see people as excited to learn about cybersecurity as I am to talk about it and to teach it. A few people have been asking about a video that explains how to install Kali Linux and VirtualBox on your machine, and you're in luck because Zach already has a great video about that right here on Learn Cybersecurity. Definitely check that out. There'll be a link in the description below. And with that said, let's get to this week's Let's Learn video. Now let's jump into learning about user permissions. First, let's look at how we can check the permissions, and then we can break down the basics from there. To check permissions, we use the list command with the L switch, which will display the contents of the directory in long format. The first mark of the line shows the file type. D stands for directory, and the dash represents a file. Following that, we can see the permissions for each file. This is split up into three groups: the owner, the groups, and other users. The owner of the file is typically the creator of the file, unless ownership is transferred, and we'll look into that a little bit later. Let's break down what each of these letters represent. R is permission to read, so you can open a file and view it. W is permission to write, so you can view and edit the document. X is to execute the file or run the file, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can edit and view the file as well. In this column here, we can see who owns the file. Let's look at changing the owner of the file from root to my user account. The command we will use to do this is chown or change owner. Keep in mind you might need sudo power, which is a super user, if you aren't using the root account. And now that we've run the command, we can verify that the owner has changed. Looking back at the breakdown, the last three columns show the size of the file in bytes, the date that the file was created or the date that it was last modified, and finally, the file name. There are several ways we can modify permission on these files. We can modify it using octal and binary representations. For this, let's use this handy chart that will break down how it works. The chart has three columns. The first column represents the binary position, but we want to focus on the last two columns, which shows us the octal number for what permissions we want to set. So if we wanted someone to only be able to read a document, we would use the number 4. If we would want someone to both read and execute a document, we would use 5, and so on and so forth. Since we will be setting permissions for each the owner, group, and other users, we will need a total of 3 octal values. Let's look at some examples of how this is used. I'm going to set up a terminal so it displays the chart, as well as a terminal that will display the permissions history. So we have 3 different files here. File 1, we want to set permissions so that nobody can read, write, or execute it. We use chmod command and pass it 3 0 values. File 2, we want to allow all users to be able to read, write, and execute, so we pass 3 values of 7. And file 3, we want only the owner to be able to read, write, and execute, but groups and users can only read it. So we would pass the chmod the respective values of 7, 4, 4. And let's double check to make sure that our permission modifications have been applied. Awesome, so we see that method 1 worked. Alternatively, another method for changing permissions is using the UGO, which stands for user or owner, group, and others. I've put together a simple key you can refer to as we go through this part. Looking at it here, you see the breakdown is relatively simple. U equals user or owner, G equals group, O equals others. The dash or minus sign removes a permission, the plus adds permission, equals sets the permission, and of course, as discussed earlier, R equals read, W equals write, and X equals execute. Using these variables, we put together a command that looks similar to an equation. chmod u plus x, and the file name gives the owner execute permissions. And we can see that that method worked as well. The UGO is often considered easier, but both methods will allow you to modify the permissions, so just choose which one feels more natural to you. And now we can move on to one of my favorite parts, which is bash scripting. So I want to get you familiar with creating and running your own programs and your own scripts using the command line. To keep things a little simple, we'll want to start by opening up a text editor. I personally really like to use LeafPad because it's pre-installed in Kali and just super simple to use, but whichever text editor you prefer is totally fine. So I'm going to type leafpad followed by the name of the file I want to create, which we'll name Hello Hacker. With the text editor open, we need to start by indicating to our system which interpreter we will be using. To do this, we start by adding in a shebang, which is a hash mark with an exclamation point. And now we'll tell our system you want to use the bash shell interpreter by adding /bin/bash. In the future, you can use the shebang to use different interpreters like Python, but for now let's just stick to this. So the goal of our script will be for the terminal to read Hello Hacker. For this, we're going to want to use the echo command, which just simply reads out what you instructed to say. But before getting into that, we should make a note or a comment of what our script does. By using a hash mark, whatever I have on the same line will be considered a comment and not a command. So I'm going to comment, this script returns a message that says, Hello Hacker. And now we just write out the echo command, echo hello hacker. The script is done and now we just save. Now let's apply what we learned earlier and set the permissions for the file so that it's executable, because by default the new file will not be executable by anyone. So using chmod, we can use either the octal method or the UGO method. Let's verify it's executable. Great, now that we can execute it, let's run this bad boy. To tell the terminal to execute the script, we use /hello hacker. And voila, there is our message. Learning how to make your own scripts and tools is a huge benefit in cybersecurity, so next week we'll continue to expand upon these scripts. Alright, and that wraps up this week's Let's Learn. Again, I really appreciate all the feedback that these videos have received. So if you have any tips, comments, suggestions, anything, make sure to leave it in the comments below because I do read all of them. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can always see when these videos come out. You can follow me on Twitter @TheComicGirl or come join us in the Discord. I'm frequently on there, so definitely come say hi. And with that said, I'll see you next video.